एहसास न्याय का सबके लिए, आकाश न्याय का सबके लिए, उल्लास न्याय का सबके लिए, विश्वास न्याय का सबके लिए। अपने इस हिंदुस्तान पर हक हमारा भी तो है, इंसाफ के इस आशिया पर हक हमारा भी तो है, एक मुट्ठी आसमां पर।
Namaste. Hello everyone. I am Sayonara Terreslad, Member Secretary, Goa State Legal Services Authority. This authority has been serving society at large, not only by providing legal aid, but also creating awareness on various social and legal issues, as well as the schemes of the National Legal Services Authority and the government. However, due to the constraints imposed by the pandemic, this authority decided to reach you through this electronic medium. Some say new beginnings are tough, but it's through these beginnings that we bring about a change. Henry Ford says, and I quote him, "Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is a process. Working together is success." On behalf of the Goa State Legal Services Authority, I welcome you all to the inaugural session of Virtual Juridicare Series and this authority's YouTube channel. We welcome Hon'ble Shri Justice Dama Seshadri Naidu, Judge High Court of Bombay at Goa and Chairman of the High Court Legal Services Committee. Justice Naidu is a jurist, author and a linguist in his own right. Welcome, sir. The Goa State Legal Services Authority is happy and honoured to have my Lord's gracious presence to inaugurate the GSLSA's YouTube channel, an online virtual Juridicare series where we make an attempt to provide legal services at your doorstep and provide access to justice. Now I invite my Lord, Justice Dama Seshadri Naidu, to enlighten us on the legal services scheme. May I request Lordship to take over.
Namaste. We are amid a pandemic, so this method of meeting we have adopted. It has taught us one thing. All people may face difficulties for some time, but in everyday's existence, we must acknowledge that some people face the difficulties all the time. They face the difficulties maybe because of their poverty, their illiteracy, their ignorance, their caste, or their gender, or because of all these reasons. True, inequalities are there for real, and they do not disappear overnight, nor can we wish them away. That said, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary have all been doing their best to bridge the gap, for they all have a constitutional commitment to fulfill. As we have seen, we as the people of this country, given to ourselves a constitution that declares our commitment to an egalitarian society. In the preamble, we have set out a few primary constitutional commitments. The chief among them commands this country to secure social, economic, and political justice to all its citizens. This constitutional commitment stands consecrated as a directive principle in Article 39A of the Constitution. As you may appreciate, Article 39A casts an obligation on the state, all the stakeholders, to ensure that operation of the legal system promotes justice and it's based on equal opportunity. The state ought to provide, in particular, free legal aid through suitable legislation or schemes or in any other way to ensure that opportunities for securing justice are not denied to any citizen by reason of economic or other disabilities. Thus came into existence the Legal Services Authority Act 1987, NALSA, and various beneficial programs launched by the Union and the state governments. In fact, the Legal Services Authority Act declares its aim as promoting an inclusive legal system for ensuring fair and meaningful justice to the marginalized and disadvantaged sector. It aims to provide free legal aid and advice, spread legal awareness, promote settlement of disputes through alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. Legal aid implies giving free legal services to the poor and the needy who cannot afford the services of a lawyer for prosecuting a case or a legal proceeding in any court, tribunal, or before an authority. The courts also organize Lok Adalats to secure justice based on equal opportunity. Let me briefly mention the eligibility criteria for any person to secure legal services. If we confine ourselves to the state of Goa, under the NALSA Act, as its Section 12 mandates, the beneficiaries can be the following persons: a member of a scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, a victim of trafficking in human beings, or beggar as referred to in Article 23 of the Constitution. To throw more light on this expression beggar, let me tell you, during the British Raj, its officers and jamindars used to compel persons to carry their goods when they moved from one place to another. It was a forced labor without any remuneration. So we call it bonded labor. It stands abolished under Article 23 of the Indian Constitution. If we continue with the persons eligible for services under the NALSA Act, we may note that the beneficiaries include a woman or a child, a mentally ill or otherwise disabled person, a victim of a mass disaster, ethnic violence, caste atrocity, flood or drought, earthquake, or industrial disaster. An industrial workman, persons in custody are also eligible. Persons in custody means victims under the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act sent to protective or care homes, juveniles sent to juvenile homes, patients in a psychiatric hospital, psychiatric nursing homes within the meaning of the Mental Health Act. Those persons with less than the annual income specified by the state government. Coming to the schemes of NALSA, there are 12 schemes, and they are legal services to disaster victims through NALSA scheme, victims of trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation scheme, legal services to the workers in the unorganized sector scheme, child-friendly legal services to children and their protection scheme, legal services to the mentally ill and mentally disabled person scheme, effective implementation of poverty alleviation scheme, protection and enforcement of tribal rights scheme, legal services to the victims of drug abuse and the eradication of the drug menace scheme, legal services to senior citizens scheme, legal services to victims of acid attack scheme, victim compensation scheme, and scheme for paralegal volunteers. Let's first discuss the legal services scheme to disaster victims. We have already seen that Section 12E of the NALSA Act provides legal services to the victims of disaster, both man-made and natural. The disaster may have struck in the form of ethnic violence, caste atrocities, flood, drought, earthquake, or industrial disasters, or any other forms of mass calamities. The legal services authorities help the victims by ensuring immediate help through governmental and non-governmental agencies to the victims. They coordinate the activities of different departments of the government and the NGOs. It is to bring immediate relief. They supervise the distribution of relief materials, construction of temporary shelters, or transportation of the victims to a safer place. The authorities also supervise the reunion of families, health care, and sanitation of the victims. They take measures to prevent the spread of epidemics. The legal services authorities organize legal aid clinics in the affected areas. Thus, they assist in reconstructing valuable documents and in rehabilitation. Indeed, they also take care of the orphan children's future education. The next scheme is for the victims of trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. The victims of trafficking face a great deal of trauma. They face this trauma not only during the trafficking, but also after their rescue. They need to be protected from the traffickers who would want them to come back or not pursue their cases. There are also livelihood issues because if they're not provided a viable alternative livelihood, the victims of trafficking may relapse into the old ways. Therefore, the scheme aims at rescue, rehabilitation, and prevention. This scheme applies to the transgenders too. Let me elaborate. The authorities coordinate with the departments concerned to see that childcare takes place through integrated child development services, food security or ration cards are provided, social security or pension is provided for the elderly women, educational schemes are coordinated, skill development takes place with the necessary funds from government and public sector undertakings, assisted housing or subsidy for construction is provided, besides land pattas from urban development or housing corporations. They get benefited from the government's beneficial schemes and policies such as Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, voter card, SHG membership. Legal services clinics are established to ensure free legal aid and protection. Now let's talk about the third scheme, legal services to the workers in the unorganized sector scheme. We all agree that a vast majority of labor are employed in the unorganized sector. These unorganized workers lack collective bargaining power and are therefore susceptible to exploitation. They work under poor working conditions and receive far lower wages or remuneration than the employees in the organized sector, even for comparable jobs. In this backdrop, the authorities try to provide essential legal services to all unorganized workers, plug the gaps in legislation or in its implementation by coordinating with government authorities and by initiating public interest litigation, mobilize the official machineries of the state government and the district administration to identify and register all unorganized workers in all categories. It is to ensure that the benefits of all government schemes are extended to the unorganized workers as applicable to them. Spread the awareness among the employers regarding the statutory provisions and the need for providing decent working conditions, living wages, and social security to the workers. Now let's talk about the next scheme. We do not dispute that children are amongst the most vulnerable sections in any society. The framers of our Constitution well understood that the development of the nation can be achieved through the development of the children of the nation. And it's necessary to protect the children from exploitation as well. Under the NALSA Child-Friendly Legal Services to Children and the Protection Scheme, this felt necessity is taken care of. The main objectives of the scheme are ensuring legal representation to the children in need of care and protection and the children in conflict with law at all levels, strengthening legal services, institutional care, counseling and support services at the national, state, district and taluka levels, creating an environment in the juvenile justice system in which children are valued, encouraged and affirmed, so their rights are respected and they are treated as individuals. Enhancing capacities at all levels of all functionaries, including paralegal volunteers, panel lawyers, counselors, service providers, NGOs, local bodies, police, judiciary, and other departments of state governments to undertake responsibilities for providing child-friendly legal services. Ensuring that mandatory authorities and institutions like juvenile justice boards, child welfare committees, etc., are set up under various child-friendly legislations. Generating database of all the existing central or state schemes, policies, regulations, standard operating procedures, policy directives, conventions, rules, declarations, comments, and other reports for child welfare and protection. Now we will discuss the scheme that concerns mental health. That is the NALSA Legal Services Scheme for the mentally ill and mentally disabled persons. It ensures that the mentally ill or mentally disabled are not stigmatized. Instead, they are dealt with as individuals who ought to be helped. The scheme ensures that all the rights available to them as assured by the law are enforced. The legal services institutions coordinate with NGOs and other voluntary social organizations for helping the mentally disabled persons. The next one is NALSA Scheme for Effective Implementation of Poverty Alleviation. Very often we realize that the fruits of the poverty alleviation and social security measures do not reach the intended and desired beneficiaries. It may be because of various reasons, including infrastructural inadequacies and lack of coordination. Under this scheme, the authorities ensure that the socially or economically weaker sections of society get access to the benefits. The state authorities identify the scheme and prepare a list. Then they circulate it to the district authorities. Programs are conducted for generating awareness about various poverty alleviation schemes. Let's move on to the next scheme, Protection and Enforcement of Tribal Rights Scheme. NALSA felt the need to draw up a scheme for the tribal people because despite all efforts made to improve the socio-economic conditions of tribes, the states have realized that the lot of the scheduled tribes has improved only marginally. So to enable them to access justice in all its connotations, that is access to rights, benefits, legal aid, other legal services, the state has formulated this scheme. The authorities ensure that the scheduled tribes get the benefits from the following acts: the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006, the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989, the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013. Now we come to the legal services to the victims of drug abuse and the eradication of the drug menace scheme. Awareness programs are organized about the legal provisions, various policies, and schemes concerning narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. The program also aims at creating awareness about the ill effects of drug abuse among the children in schools, colleges, streets, urban slums, and so on. The awareness programs include the injective drug users, prisoners, workers in unorganized sector, chemists, drug peddlers, sex workers, and general masses too. This scheme, we may note, aims to mobilize the available infrastructure for identifying the victims of drug abuse, their treatment, and for post-detoxification rehabilitation. To tap the potential of the Panchayat Raj institutions, local bodies at grassroots level for intervention and prevention of drug abuse and destruction of illicit cultivation of plants used to derive the drugs or substances. To maintain effective coordination with drug de-addiction centers and rehabilitation centers for better facilities and for respecting the rights of the victims. The authorities under this scheme intervene if any breach is noticed. Now let's talk about a universal problem. The senior citizens. They face a myriad challenges, physical, mental, social, and financial, in a way unique to them. The economic problems could be due to lost employment, with a consequent loss of income and economic security. Physical problems include senility and a host of geriatric disorders. And another problem they face is lack of family support or their inability to adjust socially. The right to live with dignity encompasses the senior citizens too. So NALSA has come up with the scheme for the benefit of senior citizens. The scheme aims to outline the basic rights and benefits that should be extended to senior citizens, to strengthen legal aid and representation at the national levels for senior citizens, to ensure access to various governmental schemes and programs to the senior citizens, to ensure that the authorities and institutions, such as the tribunals under the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act and old age homes for senior citizens are established, to create and spread awareness about the rights and entitlements of the various laws and governmental schemes and programs through the district legal services authorities, Taluka legal services committees, panel lawyers, paralegal volunteers, students, and legal services clinics. Now let's discuss a burning problem, literally. Acid attacks are the most pernicious form of violence that is resorted to, and it's mostly gender specific. The Justice Verma Committee, constituted by the central government in 2013 after the Nirbhaya case, suggested reforms in the criminal justice system. It was to deal with the issue of acid attacks. NALSA came up with Legal Services to Victims of Acid Attack Scheme 2016. It is to strengthen legal aid and legal representation at the national, state, district, and taluka levels for victims of acid attacks. To enable the victims of acid attacks to get access to medical facilities and rehabilitative services. To create and spread awareness about the entitlement of the victims of acid attacks. This awareness spreading is through the district legal services authorities, taluka legal services committees, panel lawyers, paralegal volunteers, and legal services clinics. I shall now come to the victim compensation schemes. And in Goa, there are two notified schemes. First is the Goa Victim Compensation Scheme 2012, and second, the Goa Compensation Scheme for women victims, survivors of sexual assault and other crimes 2018. The Department of Home conferred jurisdiction on the district collector for entertaining applications under the Goa Victim Compensation Scheme 2012. The scheme also ensures that the victim has presented application in accordance with the procedure. Then the state or district legal services authority or the district collector may award compensation to the victim or his dependent to the extent as specified in the schedules. The award of compensation under this scheme is subject to the compensation the victim may receive under subsection 3 of section 357 of the Criminal Procedure Code. If the victim or dependent is a minor, the compensation shall be released to the guardian or another competent person. To alleviate the suffering of the victim, the state or the district legal services authority may order immediate first aid facility or medical benefits at free of cost to the victims. It requires a certificate from the police officer not below the rank of an officer in charge of a police station or a magistrate. And we come to the last scheme now, the paralegal volunteer scheme. The scheme aims at imparting legal training to volunteers selected from different walks of life. It is to ensure that the legal aid reaches all sections of people. The paralegal volunteers are expected to act as intermediaries, bridging the gap between the common people and the legal services institutions. Thus, the impediments in the path of accessing justice are removed. Ultimately, the scheme aims at the legal services institutions reaching out to the people at their doorsteps, rather than people approaching those institutions themselves. Paralegal volunteers are not only expected to impart awareness on laws and the legal system, but are also trained to counsel and amicably settle simple disputes between the parties at the source level itself. If the dispute cannot be resolved at the source level, the PLVs help the parties to bring the issue to the ADR centers. The paralegal volunteers, whom I call PLVs, can be drawn from the pools of retired government servants, senior citizens, students, doctors, Anganwadi workers, teachers, members of non-political, service-oriented NGOs, societies, clubs, and so on. After training, they'll be issued identity cards, which will be for 1 year. The PLVs are entitled to honorarium as well. Besides educating the weaker sections and creating awareness among them about various schemes, the PLVs also work in front offices and in legal aid clinics of the district and taluka legal services. I believe we have discussed the schemes rather elaborately, and I hope the stakeholders strive hard to ensure that the fruits of the schemes reach the beneficiaries. I also hope that every responsible citizen, including the beneficiaries, come forward and become an integral part of this legal aid movement. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Lordship, for accepting our invitation to inaugurate this online series and providing valuable information to our viewers. Thank you all for joining us today.
राष्ट्रीय न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण
न्यायालयातल्या कारवाई खातीर बरो वकील मेळून दिता.
वेळार योग्य कायद्या खालची मदत आणि सल्लो दिता.
लोक अदालत द्वारा चढ काळच्या केसेक बेगीन सोपयता
आणि ते बी सामके मोफत.
राष्ट्रीय न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण बेस बरो न्याय बेस बरो समाज.
अधिक माहिती खातीर लागच्या न्यायालयातल्या न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण कार्यालया लागीं संपर्क करा
वा टोल फ्री नंबर 151000 चेर फोन करा.